So good morning. I think it's complicated. I have a little plaque on my wall that says 80% of success in life is showing up. And I think the first thing, speaking to the choir here today for coming out and being a part of this wonderful event, but I think one of the first things I started with when I was in college, two drivers. The first one was if you go to a meeting, you might as well run it, because then you're working on your ideas instead of someone else's. And the second one is if you're nervous that you're in danger of learning something. So try to put yourself in a situation where you're not comfortable, and I think these have been drivers for me to start an industry. There's always a luck component, and I'm a true believer in the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I just happened to have taken a track where I was a headhunter, I was a recruiter right out of school, and then I owned an ad agency that specialized in human resources. It wasn't the kind of sexy ad agency that does the ads you see on television. I did the help wanted ads in the newspaper. And it turns out that that's actually a nice, tidy little business where you make a 15% commission when you place a help wanted ad. And I had an ad agency that placed those kind of ads. I found that my challenge was about talking with the director of HR, the VP of HR, and strategizing with them. And next thing you know, I came up with this crazy idea to first build a bulletin board system in the early 1990s. And ultimately, while I was trying to figure out how to do that, the World Wide Web was invented. And I was lucky because there were only 200 websites in the whole world when I started looking at the idea of building a mosaic page. That is how you accidentally start a business that I did not know I was going to change the world.
There's a room full of entrepreneurs here who have started businesses from scratch. Of course, have not had, for the most part, had the kind of extraordinary success that you've had. Can you talk about those early days, those first days? How did you attract those first talented people to help you build the company, and how did you attract the capital that you needed to expand?
So, for those of you that know about Myers-Briggs, I have a big fat E on the front of mine, and I am, I've kind of, as a leader, have always felt that if I have an idea that I know that I don't know what I don't know, so I better get some people around me that know how to do this. And I've always felt as an entrepreneur that I had certain strengths around the voice and the brand and the idea and being able to see something that was out ahead of maybe what other people could see. But I'm terrible with the details. I'm terrible with some of the classes I skipped when I was in college, like accounting and all that kind of stuff. And so very quickly you realize to build a business up that you need people to complement your strengths and fill in your weaknesses. And so I went about a process of saying I'm not very good at most things, so I better get great people in all of those things. And then I really like having employees.
And then how important was capital in those early years?
So capital was important, but I had a business that I started the idea of Monster inside another business, and the other business was a good business. And so I had investors in that business, and we were profitable, and I was able to convince my investors to take the profits from my base business and pour them into this little idea. You sometimes talk about this as first curve and second curve. I had a second curve idea in the business, which was to build out the Monster platform in my ad agency that specialized in placing help wanted ads. And my investors initially said, go ahead and do it, and then said, you're crazy. What's this Monster thing you're doing? Stop doing that. And so there was a lot of salesmanship early on, but the first capital came from my good business in the foundation of the sporting business where this idea came from. And then eventually I sold that business to a bigger corporation in New York City and ran my division for that company. And eventually that company was renamed Monster Worldwide. So it was renamed my small division, which got bigger and bigger and bigger. So this has been a combination of raising capital and having ideas and fighting for the opportunity to make Monster successful. What do you think? You think Monster is a good name for a business? Everybody hated it. Everybody. My wife said she wouldn't leave the house with me if I called my business Monster. She's not my wife anymore, but my employees said it was like the monster under your bed. And I said, no, I think it's like a monster hurricane, which is the bad word, hurricane. Monster just makes it bigger. I think it's a monster home run is just a huge home run. And my biggest client said, not only do I hate the name, it's not going to work. I was like, why? And think about it, my biggest client. So I said, he said to me, it's not going to work. And I said, why? And he said, because no one will look for a job during the day while they're at the office. So they do. 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday is the busiest time of Monster.com.
So clearly you're someone who's comfortable thinking independently, making your own judgments, and then you talked about vision and voice and intuition. Were you born with those things, or how did you, accumulate those special skills?
It's funny, the macro of that is probably, as an entrepreneur, are you born with those skills, or do you learn those skills? And I think one of the things I talk about is the law of the jungle is to blend in to avoid being eaten, or to stand out to attract a mate. And I think in high school, I was in that blend-in category. It didn't go very well for me. And in college, I decided that I was going to need to be different and to try to stand out and kind of get my skills out there. I was born in Aurora. Maybe share a little bit of background. That if you go to the deep stuff, like you go for the deep dive, I was born in Aurora. My family is from Des Plaines and from Naperville, and I grew up in Peoria, Illinois. My dad was a minister, and he was the minister for an all-black church in one of the suburb areas of Peoria. And so I grew up from when I was 4 until I was just about 10, and I was the only white family in a neighborhood with 1,000 black African-American families all around me. So I had this incredible experience as a young child here in Chicago. And also my mom went, my mom went and got a master's degree and then another master's degree. And my dad went and got a PhD, and both my parents ended up being educators. My mom was a guidance counselor, and my dad was a college professor and a dean at UMass in Boston. And so I moved to Boston when I was 10 or 11 years old. But I think that it was the equality of my parents and the fact that just because it was called a washing machine didn't mean it had to have a woman attached to it. And just because it was a vacuum cleaner didn't mean it needed to have a person attached to it. So my dad did the laundry and the vacuuming. And so we had this very rich experience in almost every dynamic of my young life. And I've, as a executive, we were talking about this, as an executive, I'm just being who I am. And it's been wonderful.
It's interesting, here in Chicago, I often talk about the fact that McDonald's has done an extraordinary job around these issues of supplier diversity, management team, franchisees, and it's a part of their culture, and they really live their values. And then, by the way, it's the #1 market cap in Chicago. Last year, Fortune magazine said it was the #1 best managed company in the world. We have an African-American CEO coming on board, Don Thompson. And so there's a connection there between doing things the right way and great success. And so I'm curious, what do you think, how much more successful could our country be if we were including all of our talent and being able to compete globally more effectively?
Right. So first of all, I don't think you can ever miss a moment to say, then congratulations to McDonald's for doing such a good job, right? And the I'm loving it thing, which this is not a commercial, but it's obviously working, right? Because if the people in the organization, it's always about people, right? If you break it down, it's we dance all around the proximate problems, proximate causes that we have, which are all the things, right? It's always about people in the center. I guess if I were to kind of put a little bit of an accent on my earlier story, you have these companies that have 100 employees or less that are just hiring the people in their neighborhoods or the colleges that are near them, and a few other people to kind of add a little bit of seasoning, right? Then you have these big companies that have the resources, and shame on most companies that don't actually take advantage of the resources and do great in this category. So I think part of your role and this organization's role is to press these companies to use the services of all of the service providers that you're gathering in this wonderful organization, right? That's just good business and hard work. That takes people making phone calls and making suggestions, and it takes the classic sales to happen. But I think that the other challenge that I see is there's a lot of little companies and there's a lot of big companies that are supposed to have diversity initiatives, and right from the board level, they're supposed to have that composition of their board that reflects the values of the organization. And so if your board doesn't reflect that, then I think then how can you expect your senior leadership to reflect that? And if your senior leadership doesn't reflect that, then it just moves down the organization. And I think in a kind of practiced way for me, it all turns out to just be how you recruit the young, bright, smart people in your organizations. Because they will be the people 10 years from now that are running departments and creating that kind of cultural infusion that you're looking for. So I think you do it at the top, like McDonald's, and I think we all have a chance to do it by hiring smart people that also have that extra mix, that extra blend of value that really puts the accent on this is going to be a great hire. Not only is this person skilled and their abilities look great, but it's also a Hispanic candidate, and I feel really good about that. I think you literally have to take those steps in order to have the wins in your organizations. Dr. Seuss, oh, the places you'll go. Don't go to the waiting place where you're waiting for your hair to grow and the snow to snow. Go to the place where the boom bands are playing. Go to the loud, noisy place where the action is happening, and go make a difference.